Welcome, dear listeners, to another enchanting episode of Folklore Journeys, where we journey through the rich tapestry of myths and legends from around the globe. Today, we embark on uncovering the mystical tales woven deep within the cultural fabric of Colombia. Joining us are Nathaly, a friend of mine, and Alberto, my father. They are two Colombians who graciously agreed to share their insights into the rich tapestry of Colombian mythology. Welcome, Nathaly and Alberto. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, Bernie.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Nathaly?
I'm originally from Colombia, but I've been traveling since I was 16 and I'm now living here in the Bay Area.
And you, Alberto?
Well, I was born in Sweden, but my dad's are from Colombia, so I'm a Colombian. And I studied there, but I have been living in Chile for the rest of my life. I'm also an architect, so I'm very interested in the culture of my country.
Thank you. So let's dive right in. Colombia is known for its diverse cultural heritage. Could you tell us about some of the key figures or stories that are deeply rooted in Colombian tradition?
Yeah, so let me tell you about one of the most famous ones. It is El Dorado. So El Dorado is a famous legend originated in South America during the Spanish conquest era. According to the legend, El Dorado was a city kingdom filled with riches, especially gold, hidden in the jungles of South America. So the Spanish conquistadors, they were obsessed with gold and they came to our regions just to explore and to find this supposedly golden city and get all the gold out of there. So the interesting thing is that they said that there was this city completely made out of gold. The Spaniards tried to look for it all over the Amazon jungle, but it was never found. The curious thing is that people go camping in that area around Laguna de Guatavita, and whenever people are camping, they have seen boats that show up completely made out of gold. So where is that golden city? We never know. Even one of the politicians of Colombia tried to make this lagoon empty, and they never found anything.
Sometimes legends have various versions. Alberto, do you have anything to add to her story?
Well, nobody knows the real thing about El Dorado. Some Muiscas myth thinks that the cacique dressed up in gold and they glue it with honey to his body. Then he went to the Guatavita lake and jumped into the cold water to liberate from the gold, and that was an offer to the gods.
It's really interesting because in different parts of South America we have kind of the same myths. In Chile we have one really similar, which is the city of the Caesars, which is also supposedly full of gold. Moving on, how do you think that this myth influenced Colombian culture and identity?
So the legend says that the leader of this tribe used to wear everything in gold, and whenever they died, they were just sent to this lake called Laguna de Guatavita, and with all their golden possessions. So this kind of representation has influenced through the architecture in Colombia. So many people use that in architecture, in art, in poetry, in literature, and even in music.
And Alberto, how do you think these and other myths and legends influence contemporary Colombian culture and society?
Everything contributes to the culture of the country. So there is no way that a myth do not affect the behavior of the people. So everything that came from the Muisca people, like foods and like behaviorness, contribute to the formation of the Colombian culture.
I agree with you. I think that stories and their way of living greatly contributes to the culture of a country. Moving on, are there any lesser known or original myths that you find particularly intriguing?
Yeah, when I was little, my grandma used to talk about this mythical creature. She said that he used to inhabit the forest or the river. So whenever you were at the river, there was this person who used to seduce young women, and he used to play tricks on them just to kidnap them or something like that. So that was quite interesting. And I think that was one strategy that my grandma used to use with us just to behave.
And what's the name of this critter?
Mohan, El Mohan.
El Mohan? In Chile, we have a really similar one, which is called El Trauco. It's interesting how some mythical figures around the world have similar characteristics.
I think so too.
Do you have another lesser-known stories or regional myths to share, Alberto?
Well, the only one that occurs to me is that long time ago, in the top of the mountains in the Bacata Plateau, there was a huge amount of water due to an enormous amount of rainfall. The god of the Muisca people, his name was Bochica. He taught them how to eat, how to create things, how to do ceramic work, and how to live. And he was a kind god. And he touched a rock in the Tequendama region, and all the water poured out of the plateau. So they create a place where they can grow and harvest. And it's actually the place of Bogota, the new name of the ancient Bacata.
It's a really fun myth, especially if you visit Bogota. You can understand how the Muisca people view the world, and actually you can see it through the geological formations. Now, in your opinion, why do you think it's important to preserve and celebrate these myths in modern times?
I think that we as Latin American people, we should value more our resources, such as gold, and we should not repeat stories as it happened in the past. Actually, Spaniards did not discover America because the indigenous were already there, and we should not repeat stories like people coming here giving you a mirror in exchange of gold as they did it in the past. So I think that our people should value more all the resources that we have, not only gold but the natural resources, cultural resources that we have, and use that and expand it all over the world.
And how do you think these stories help you to do that?
I think these stories are important for us to tell future and new generations, and also all of us who are traveling and living in other countries, studying in other countries, to make other people aware of what reality is and what history was. It's not the history that you saw or that you learned from the books. It's actually what really happened at that time.
And Alberto, what's your opinion on this matter?
I don't know if it is important, but I think all the legends join to create a way of thinking and a way of believing and a way of living. So I guess it's important to preserve all the thoughts of the old people.
You put that beautifully. Now, before we conclude, could you share one of your favorite Colombian myths with our listeners?
Oh boy, there is this one that is so interesting. So there is in one of the regions of Colombia, when you are bitten by this insect called la machaca, you need to have sex immediately right after that. If you do not have sex, then you're gonna die. So I think that's interesting. Once I read in this article that it was proven to be true. I don't know much about it, but it's quite funny.
Is la machaca an insect?
Yes, it is an insect. If you're bitten by it, you need to go and have sex.
I love it.
I love it too.
Alberto, I know you have an anecdote connected to this story. Could you tell our listeners about it?
Oh, that's a funny story. My brother once, long time ago, he catch a Chicharra Machaca and he put it in a jar. And my dad was the commander officer of a base, not naval because it was in a river base, connected to the Colombian Navy, and all the place was guarded by Marine Corps. And when my brother arrived in the naval base with the jar and the machaca, all the men disappeared because there were not enough women in the town just to collaborate with them. Otherwise, they will lose their male parts. That's really funny.
I love this story, it's so fun. And also it's really interesting how some versions says that you will die and in others you will lose your male parts. And that's something that happens with oral tradition. It changes through the years and depending on who tells you about it, you will have different versions. Now, finally, what do you hope listeners take away from our discussion on Colombian mythology today?
Well, I think that the richness of the way that a culture is created is important for anyone. I love all the cultures and I think you have to have respect for them because they were created by humans, for humans, and with humans, for the posterity. I don't know if that's important, but for me it is.
It is certainly important. It's the base of what we are today, of who we are, and who will be tomorrow. Thank you, Nathaly and Alberto, for sharing your knowledge with us today.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Join us next time as we uncover more tales from around the globe. Thank you for listening to Folklore Journeys. Until next time! This has been Bernardita signing off.